Izuku was laying in his bed, getting ready to go to sleep after a long day, when suddenly he heard a knock on the door. Who is it? Now, Izuku didn't know who could be knocking on his door this late at night. It could have been one of the girls looking for more cuddles, like Kei, Eri, or Kyoku. It could have been Yami or Fu asking for more food. It could have been his mother wanting to talk to him. Or in a worst-case scenario, it could have been Momo, Ida, or Achiko telling him that something terrible has happened. It's me. Who Izuku did expect, probably the last person he would have expected, was Fuku. His eyes widened, and he was stunned into silence for a moment before he quickly responded. Oh, come in. There was a moment of silence, presumably, Fuku was hesitating before she ultimately opened the door. Hi. Izuku. Fuku stuttered, before looking at the ground with a pained expression. This whole thing was concerning to Izuku. Firstly, Fuku approaching him was odd. Not bad, but definitely odd. And now this. She was definitely trying to call him dad. Which should have pleased him, and it would have, if not for how forced it was. It was clear she had tried, and failed, to force herself to call him dad, and was clearly displeased at her inability to do so. But why was she forcing herself to call him dad in the first place? Hey Fuku. Is everything alright? Do you need anything? Izuku asked, not wanting to sound overly concerned. Sometimes that would make Fuku think she did something wrong. I'm okay. Fuku said a bit too quickly. It's just I was wondering, if it's not asking too much, if you could possibly spend the day with me tomorrow. Almost immediately, Fuku closed her eyes, and held her head down, putting her hands over her head and seemingly waiting to be struck or yelled at. Of course. I may be a busy person, but it's my job first and foremost, to take care of you and the others. Izuku reminded her. And to make sure none of you want for anything. So if you want to spend more time with me, then I'll be happy to do so. Thank you so much. Fuku said. I am really looking forward to tomorrow. I have a lot of things I want to do with you. I'll be looking forward to it too, Fuku, Izuku told her, giving her a kind smile. We should both get some rest. Sounds like we have a big day tomorrow. Oh, yes. Oh, could you imagine if I asked to spend time with you, and then I couldn't do anything right because I was too tired? Fuku gulped. That would be so disrespectful. It'd be fine. It happens to all of us. Izuku reassured her. But let's try and keep that from happening. Right. I'll be going back to my room now. Fuku said as she shuffled back towards the door. So sorry for disturbing you. Good night. Good night, Izuku told her as she left. Once Fuku was gone, Izuku laid back down. I'll have to figure out exactly what's going on with her tomorrow. Hopefully, it's nothing too serious. XXXXXXXXXXXX. Izuku woke up to the smell of eggs and bacon. He opened his eyes and saw a veritable feast in front of him, laying a large wooden tray in front of him. There were eggs, bacon, pancakes, and orange juice. Something you'd see as typical American breakfast. And it smelled amazing. Gee, good morning. Izuku looked up from his breakfast and saw Fuku sitting at a small table next to him, with a stack of pancakes and strawberries on her plate. She looked up at him anxiously, with the tiniest tinge of hope in her eyes. I wanted to make you some breakfast, as a thanks for everything you've done for me. And I really wanted to eat with you too. A huge smile grew on Izuku's face, and he moved out his arm to pat Fuku on the head. Thank you. It looks amazing. But you don't have to thank me really. I really do. Fuku insisted, looking down at her food with a frown. I had to leave my room early, and ask Sato to teach me how to make this, because I heard you were a big fan of American stuff, so I wanted to make an American-style breakfast. I wouldn't have been able to do that without you. I probably wouldn't have been able to do a lot of things without you. Without you, I'd probably be all on my own, in a room, forever. Point is I have a lot to thank you for. So please enjoy the meal. Izuku stopped himself from sighing or frowning. It was hard seeing Fuku be depressed. But she was still so much better than how she was when she got here. He had to remind himself that this was progress, even if acknowledging that fact made him even more depressed. Shaking his head to rid himself of those thoughts, Izuku decided to finally indulge in the meal. He cut into one of the pancakes, before using his fork to rub the pancake around the plate, making sure there was plenty of syrup on it, before putting it in his mouth. Oh, this is really good for someone who just learned how to cook it. Izuku thought to himself. It wasn't mind-blowing by any means. going just above average into the pretty good tier of foods. Competently made. And while that didn't sound like much, it was still very impressive considering her complete lack of experience. People didn't tend to do well when having to do something they'd never even tried before, so for Fuku to do this well, was pretty amazing. After swallowing it, he gave Fuku a smile and a thumbs up. It was probably the best way he could handle it. Too much praise and Fuku would think he was lying, and too little and Fuku would think she didn't do well enough. It was a tricky balance to reach using words, so perhaps a gesture would be better suited. And judging by Fuku's sigh of relief, before she dug into her own food, the two of them enjoyed their meal together for a bit, but Izuku felt the need to fill the silence. So, have you given any thought to what you want to do in the future? Izuku asked her, both to make conversation and because he was genuinely curious. Any plans? An ideal career? Anything? Fuku paused for a moment, before swallowing her food and giving Izuku a nervous look. I want to do something creative. Everyone tells me that I'm really good at drawing and writing. And I know how to sew and cook too. So I think I could probably be a good author. Or artist, or dressmaker, or a cake decorator. If that's okay. Of course, it is, Izuku told her. No matter what job you choose, I will always support you, and try to help you achieve your dreams. Although, I didn't know that you wrote. The moment Izuku said that, Fuku's whole body went stiff, and her pupils shrunk as she made the deer in headlights expression, telling Izuku that she probably said that part by accident and didn't even realize it. I mean, I do, but... Fuku looked down at her plate, her face bright red, and beads of sweat dripping down her face. You don't want to show it to me, Izuku said, figuring that out rather quickly. Please don't be mad. Fuku begged, almost immediately. I'll show it to you if you really want, but Fu's the only person that thinks it's good as Moo, and that might be because he's the only person who's read it besides me, but I think it's really terrible and kind of cringe and dash. Fuku's it's alright. Izuku had a feeling he would be saying that a lot today. I told you before, I'll try not to force you to do anything you're uncomfortable with. If you don't want to show me your writing, then you don't have to. But, you're supposed to be my DD dad, Fuku said, managing to force herself to call him dad, although that didn't seem to make her any happier. In fact, her calling him dad seemed to make her mood even worse, as she looked down at her plate with an intensely guilty expression. I should be able to share anything with you. Izuku sighed and gave her a sad look. Unfortunately, we haven't had much time to bond. One of the downsides of my job is that I can't spend time with all you kids at once. And some will call for more of my attention, meaning that it can leave my bond with certain children a bit lacking. I've been content to let Eri and Kay help you out with your difficulties, and I do think that was the right decision, but as a result, you are one of the children I've spent the least amount of time with, unfortunately. But hopefully, we can fix that today. Fuku paused for a moment, before giving her pancakes a determined pout. Why yeah, we'll fix that. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. After finishing up their breakfast, the two moved on to the first activity Fuku had planned for today, a game of catch. Izuku and her were currently in the backyard, with Izuku holding the ball, looking mighty confused. Are you sure you want to do this? Izuku asked her. I never figured you were one for catch. Why yeah well I just want to try new things, Fuku told him. Her constantly shifting eyes and nervous expression, even more nervous than normal that is, gave her away. Lying was not her strong suit. But Izuku decided not to call her out just yet. He had to be careful when dealing with Fuku, he couldn't be too aggressive. Alright, but if you don't feel like you're having fun, we can stop anytime you like, Izuku told her, before raising up his arm. Are you ready? Fuku got a good distance away from Izuku, before looking around, getting nervous, and walking a bit closer, and then repeating this process a few more times, until she found a spot close enough to Izuku, but also far enough that he could reasonably throw it at her. Oh equals okay. Do it. Alright, here goes. Izuku threw the ball at her softly, not too hard, but just hard enough to reach her. However, instead of catching it, Fuku's eyes dilated in fear, before she ducked down, and putting her hands in front of her face. Please no. The ball flew over Fuku's head, landing a few feet behind her. Huh? Fuku seemed to snap out of whatever had taken over at the moment and realized what she'd done. Oh no, I messed up. Fuku, are you sure you want to do this? Izuku asked again. You looked like you were scared for your life there. I'm sorry. Sometimes that man, would throw stuff at me when he got really angry, so I just kind of did this on instinct. Izuku couldn't hide his disgust after hearing that, as he once again wondered how any parent could do that to their child. However, Fuku, being Fuku, took Izuku's disgusted expression the wrong way, and almost started crying. "I'm sorry. Please don't be mad, I won't do it again, I swear." The moment Izuku heard that, he cursed himself for not reining himself in, and letting himself forget his present company. "Wait Fuku, I wasn't mad at you. I was just upset at your old father for doing that to you. I'm sorry. No really, it was my fault, I should have prepared myself better since I knew that I got used to doing that when things were thrown at me," Fuku argued. "You shouldn't have to apologize for something like that, if anything it's my fault for not having noticed that after all this time," Izuku countered. "But you're so busy all the time, how could anyone blame you for that? I was the one who said we should play catch and completely forgot about the fact that I'm like this," Fuku rebuked. This continued for quite some time, but after eventually deciding to just drop the subject, Izuku said they should probably abandon catch for now. And so they moved on to the next part of Fuku's activity list. Bike riding. XXXXXXXXXXXXXX. Ack. Well, bike riding was what Fuku put on her list. However, Fuku forgot one important detail. She didn't know how to ride a bike. This is what led to Fuku falling on the ground as her bike tilted to the side. Again, Izuku hadn't moved at all, staying stationary on his bike, watching as Fuku tried to ride her bike to no avail. "Are you sure you don't want training wheels?" "And no thanks. I can do it," Fuku said, picking herself up again. She knew that her age, using training wheels would be pretty embarrassing. "Just give me a second." Fuku got back up and got back on her bike, before making another attempt to ride it, and once again falling over. Izuku cringed at seeing her wince in pain. "Can you at least let me teach you then? I really can't stand the sight of you getting hurt this much." "Oh okay," Fuku groaned. The lessons were slow going. Izuku would hold the handles as he taught Fuku to pedal. This phase of the lessons would go well, but whenever he would try to let go so she could pedal on her own, she wouldn't make it very far before she fell again, mostly due to a lack of confidence. After falling down yet again, Fuku sighed in frustration. "Darn it, why is this so hard?" "Don't worry about that. You made it a lot farther this time," Izuku reassured her, offering her a hand to help her back up. As Fuku got up, she looked up and noticed the sun was now a different position from when they first started, and her eyes grew wide. "Wait! How long have we been doing this?" Izuku looked at his watch. "About 2 hours? 2 hours!" Fuku shouted in a panic. "Oh my god, I can't believe we've been doing this for 2 hours. Are we gonna have time for everything else? Should I move on or?" Fuku considered her options. Should she continue trying to learn how to ride a bike, making very slow and painful progress, or move on? In the end, it wasn't as difficult a decision as she thought. Actually, could we move on to the next thing please?" Fuku asked Izuku nervously. "If that's what you want." Izuku agreed. "What's next?" XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. The next activity took Izuku and Fuku into the forest. Seeing as wild animals and potential intruders were lurking there, Izuku instructed a hound to remain nearby, as well as a few bearing elves. Although they were to stay out of sight, as to not stress out Fuku with their terrifying appearance. And what were the two of them doing in the forest? Fishing. Yes, the two of them were sitting by a lake with some fishing rods, waiting for some fish to show up. Suddenly, Fuku felt a pull on her line. I got a bite." "Oh, reel it in," Izuku encouraged her. Fuku stood up and started reeling in the line. However, the fish seemed to be pretty heavy, and she had to try and pull it out, but that didn't seem to do much as Fuku struggled to try and pull it up. Izuku helped her out, grabbing her arms and helping her out. "Come on, we can do it." Ack. Fuku and Izuku finally pulled the fish out, hurling it into the air as it flopped around, startled by being taken out of the water. Izuku caught the fish as it came back down, and held it as it flopped around in his arms. "Wow, this is a pretty big one. Great job Fuku." Fuku was absolutely beaming as Izuku put the fish in the bucket with all the other ones they'd caught. So far, the fishing had been doing swimmingly. Much better than the other two activities. They did have to look up some YouTube videos to figure out how to fish, and after a couple failures, they started to get it down. And even the waiting process was very enjoyable. It was peaceful, and the feeling of reeling a fish, which she would later then cook, was amazing. She could actually see this becoming a hobby of hers. Maybe she'd listen to some podcasts next time. Although she didn't mind the peaceful silence there was now. Seeing the peaceful smile on Fuku's face made Izuku's heart feel full. It was such a rare thing to see her so at ease. Well, he himself didn't really see her like this much, considering most of the time she only went out wearing her hoodie. However, Izuku had something else on his mind as well. Fuku had been acting weird this entire time, and now that she was at ease, Izuku felt it was finally time to confront her. Fuku. Izuku broke the silence. Fuku looked at him curiously. Are you going to tell me what this all about? Izuku asked her. Fuku tilted her head and gave him a confused look. What? You suddenly asking to spend time with me, while in no way unwelcome, is odd. Not bad, just odd, Izuku explained to her. And then there's all the times you kept forcing yourself to try and call me dad. Then today you had us do a bunch of stereotypical activities you'd see someone do with their father on TV or in a movie. None of which you're familiar with. Something is obviously up with you, and as your caretaker or as your father if you prefer, I need to know what it is, and if I should be concerned. Please, be honest with me. Fuku's face fell, a saddened expression overtaking her, as she once again looked away from him and down at the lake, staring at their reflections. After a few moments of silence, she finally worked up the nerve to answer. I want Eri and Kei to be my sisters. I mean, they might already think of me as their sister. I think they've called me that a few times, but I want it to be official. But for that, I need you to be my dad. But I just can't think of you as my father. Fuku. Izuku looked at her with a saddened expression. Not because of the whole can't think of you as my father thing that stung a little, but he was more so upset because this was clearly eating her up inside. And I don't know why. Fuku shouted, tears of frustration welling up in her eyes. I like you. You are a really good person who's done so much for me and the people I care about. You've given me everything I ever wanted, and things I didn't even know I wanted. And you even worked yourself to the point of getting sick, just for us. But whenever I try to think of you as my father I feel sick. I feel like I want to throw up and I don't know why. What's wrong with me? Fuku was really crying now, although softly, her tears falling into the lake as did so. I'm sorry. I thought that maybe if we spent more time together, then I'd be able to think of you as my father no problem, but I still feel gross when I try to think of you that way. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, I don't know why I feel like this. There was a few moments of silence between them. The only sound in the whole area was the noise Fuku's tears made as they hit the water. But eventually, Izuku responded. What is the definition of father to you? Huh? Fuku was confused by the question. Or rather why he asked that out of the blue. I asked, what is the definition of a father to you? Izuku repeated. If you were to guess, what would be the dictionary definition of the word father? A man who takes care of his children and helps them grow? Fuku guessed, unsure where Izuku was going with this. Alright. But when you think of the word father or dad, what do you think of? Izuku asked her. What comes to your mind first? Please be honest. Fuku paused for a moment, before deciding to trust Izuku, and start thinking about the word father. Almost instantly she was struck by a memory of her own father, yelling at her. Another memory of him hitting her. Another memory of him tying her to a chair. Fuku winced, almost as if she'd been stuck. Giving Izuku his answer. You keep thinking of him, don't you? Izuku said. Yes, Fuku admitted. And therein lies the problem, Izuku told her somberly. That man has ruined the term father for you. When you think of a father, you don't think of a man who cares for and supports you. You think of a terrible person who mistreats and abuses you. But I know that's not what a father's supposed to be like. Fuku argued, a horrified and desperate look in her eyes. You know that up here. Izuku pointed to her head, before moving his finger down towards her heart. But not down here. The heart and mind can often disagree. Even if you know something is true, it may take a while before you ever accept it. Sometimes people simply don't and let themselves go on believing lies because they can't bring themselves to accept the truth. Even if they want to. But Fuku's tears started picking up speed. Her hands tightened around her fishing rod, and she clamped her eyes shut. Suddenly, Fuku got another bite. Hey! Fuku shouted out in rage and frustration, startling Izuku, who was not expecting such an outburst. Fuku started reeling in the line furiously. Doing so hard Izuku was concerned she might break it. Damn him! Damn that horrible man! Even when he's not here he's still running my life. I hate him. I hate him. I hate him. The furious girl leaned back and pulled the fish out of the water, once again causing it to go flying into the air. Izuku grabbed it before it could hit the ground, and looked back at Fuku, who was now panting with exhaustion after her outburst. If I can't think of you as a father, that means me, Eri and Kate can't be real sisters. Fuku cried. That's not true, Izuku told her softly, but firmly, causing her to give him another confused look. Yes, normally two people would have to share a parent of some kind to considered siblings. But that doesn't have to be the case. Huh? Fuku continued to be baffled by what Izuku was saying. Many people will call each other sisters or brothers, regardless of their parent situation, Izuku explained. Sure, to some people being a blood sibling or a step-sibling is all there is, but for others, it's simply the next evolution of friends. People so close to you, they might as well be family. And really, what's to stop you from calling them, you sisters? They won't. I certainly won't. At that point, you only need to ask yourself, do you want to call them your sisters? Yes. Of course, I do. Fuku said, a hopeful glint in her eyes. Well, then it's settled. Izuku put his hand on her head and gave her a reassuring smile. You three are sisters. And you can be sisters with Kiba, Kyoku, any other part of our family. Even if you can't think of me as a dad. But that's just weird. Fuku pointed out. This is a foundation for overly powerful children, run by a quirkless 16-year-old, whose first employee was hired after breaking, entering on our property, and destroying our security system. Izuku chuckled. A lot of things are weird here. I guess, are you sure it's fine if I can't think of you as a father? Fuku asked. To be honest, given what you think of when you think of a father, the fact that you can't think of me as one is a compliment, Izuku told her. There's no need to worry about me forcing things on you. Especially not something like that. The only things I'll ever really insist on is that you take care of yourself, and don't hurt others. That's really all you want from me? Fuku asked. That's all, Izuku confirmed. I see. Fuku said, trying to take that in. Because it really was hard for her to understand not having expectations placed on her. She just wasn't used to it. But it was overwhelmingly relieving. The two of them sat in silence once again, enjoying the feeling of the sun beaming warmly down on the two of them. And thus, Fuku gained peace of mind and a new hobby. So all in all, a pretty day for her.